jingle bell rock. Jingle bells swing and jingle bells ring, snowing and blowing in bushels of fun. Now the jingle hop has begun.
Jingle bell rock. Jingle bells shine in jingle bell time. Dancing and prancing in Jingle Bell Square in the frosty air.
What a bright time, it's the right time to rock the night away. Jingle bell time is a swell time to go gliding in the one-horse sleigh. Giddy up, jingle horse, pick up your feet, jingle around the clock. Mix and mingle and jingle bell beat, that's the Jingle Bell Rock.
Hi, welcome to Hollywood. This is Josh, and I'm joined today by a special guest, a director slash writer slash producer slash good guy, Sam Borowski.
Thank you, Josh. It's great to be here, and I like being called a good guy. I've been called a lot worse in my life, especially by females, but I will accept good guy.
And Sam has directed several films, Nightclub, Mandela Maker, that qualified for the Oscars, right?
Yeah. That was a great thrill and helped me get the opportunity to direct and produce Nightclub, a feature film coming out later this year. The last theatrical release film of Ernie Borgnine's career, starring Natasha Lyonne, Oscar-nominated actress Sally Kellerman, Paul Sorvino, Daniel Roebuck, Ani Her from Gran Torino. It's one of my favorite films, and they're all like children. I guess you love them equally, but it is one of my favorites. So I guess that's an oxymoron. I just said you love them equally, but it's one of my favorites. But Nightclub, the chance to work with Oscar winner Ernie Borgnine was wonderful, and just a dear friend of mine up until his passing. And I was out there in California when he won the the SAG Lifetime Achievement Award, which is second only to the Oscar if you're an actor. And I still have programs from that SAG dinner, and just a great memory. It's great. I'm here during the 2-week imposed vacation. I will not be working and doing business other than maybe some writing and things until January 5th, because Hollywood, not Hollywood, but Hollywood is on vacation. On a Christmas vacation, if you will.
Everybody's recharging their batteries. Get ready for 2015.
You know, as a screenwriter yourself, Josh, and a writer, and we've talked about a lot of projects, and you have your own podcast, you know you have to recharge your batteries in this business, or you'll just go bonkers.
You got to avoid burnout.
Totally. I keep remembering Dick Vermeil, with the Philadelphia Eagles. He'd gone to the Super Bowl and lost, and like a year or two later, he's like, I am emotionally burned out. And he had that press conference. And, when I was like, I was a little kid, but it was almost like Beavis and Butthead. It's like, he said he's a burnout. And he wasn't like talking about I'm burned out, like high. He meant I'm emotionally burned out. But he was the first one I ever remember saying that, yeah. But that really is a real thing. That really is a real thing. That's very literal. It's I love this business, but anything that you have love for, that I say this business is one of the great, along with some females, one in particular, this business is the great love of my life. And, anything, your wife, your girlfriend, the business, anything you love that's that passionate can burn you out. You have to recharge, take time away. That's why relationships are so much work, and business relationships and putting a movie together. Forrest Gump took 7 years to put together. You have to recharge. You know what I'm saying?
So what are some of your favorite movies?
Well, my two favorite movies, I don't have just one. I have a top 10 I could go through, but my favorite two movies, they're tied for one, are Get Shorty and It's a Wonderful Life. And I don't know which one. They're the same. They couldn't be more different. But I bring them up because here we are at Christmas time, and It's a Wonderful Life is my favorite movie, along with Get Shorty, of all time.
It's a Wonderful Life. It cameos often in other Christmas movies. It's that iconic.
Yes, that's a great point. And in fact, it's become a tradition now. When I was a very little kid, it was on every station. And somehow it fell into the public domain. And they put it on Channel 13, and they put it on like cable access, and it was on all the time. Then NBC bought it. And I remember when I was little, and I remember they bought it. I was getting older, and I was furious because like you're only going to see it 2-3 times a year. But it's kind of become more special like that. They always have it like, I want to say around Thanksgiving, the Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend maybe. They do it like 3 times, but Christmas Eve they always run it, and it's become a tradition when I'm at family dinner with my, whether I'm at my sister's or at my house with my brother and my dad, or at my sister's, and then I stay there. I make them watch that. My sister's like, but they like it, and they say it is a great movie. And my niece comes in, and we all watch It's a Wonderful Life before I head out to midnight mass. And then I say goodnight to all my friends on the computer, on Facebook. I love Christmas, but I love watching it. And I all kidding aside, people are going to probably think I'm being cheesy, but I'm being honest. It does bring a tear to my eye at the end. When George Bailey, when Mary comes through, and crazy Uncle Billy, he's like, Mary did it, George, Mary did it. And he's dumping the bucket. He's like, Mary did it. George's in trouble. She runs all around town. And I love the scene when he's running through town when he realizes he did have a wonderful life. And he's like, get away, Bert, or I'll hit you again. And Bert's like, hey, George, what in the Sam Hill you yell? Hey, your mouth's bleeding, Bert. He's like, my mouth's bleeding, Bert. My mouth's bleeding. Who's pedals? What do you know, Bert? There they are. He reaches in his pocket. He goes, what do you know, Bert? There they are. And he hugs him. He's like, Merry Christmas. He's like, Merry Christmas. He runs through town. Merry Christmas, movie house. Merry Christmas, Emporium. Merry Christmas, you wonderful old building and loan. And then those people in the building loan, they're like, Merry Christmas, George. He's like, Merry Christmas. And then my favorite moment, he goes and he knocks on the window and he goes, I don't know if I have a window knocking sound, but it's like, Merry Christmas, Mr. Potter. And he says, Happy New Year to you in jail. Go on home. They're all waiting for you. And I don't know if I can call Mr. Potter the word that begins with an S and ends with a G, but I mean, what kind of a human being is going to let someone go to jail for a crime they didn't commit of embezzlement when Potter actually has the money that was accidentally wrapped up in the paper? I mean, that's really evil. But there are people like that in this world, sadly enough, and that's why it's so real to me. And the fact that Potter never makes the connection that he's an evil son of a gun. That he never makes that connection that he's an evil. I guess I could say bastard on this podcast, right?
That's fine.
He is an evil bastard, and he never makes that connection. That like I'm ruining people's lives, ha ha ha, and like he's a racist. He's just a terrible person. So at the end, Bailey goes home, and he's like, oh, look at this, the press, reporters. What do you know? I'm going to jail, and he's like so cool that it's not going to faze him. Then crazy Uncle Billy, Mary's running down. She said, George is in trouble. George, they don't. And they're dumping, all the people come in dumping money, and he's like, Mr. Martini's like, I'm breaking a juke box. And then the principal comes in, here you go, George, and he's like, here's something for you, little one, to like Zuzu, and he gives her like the pocket watch, and dude, it gets me every time. I don't think it's cheesy. I think it's real. I mean, look, you and I have both been through some heavy stuff in our lives without going into it, and life is real and it's hard. And, that moment when he comes in and I can, if I really want to get choked up, I could. And, they start singing Auld Lang Syne, and then they're like, Harry, the fool, George, he's here. Harry's here. The fool flew through a blizzard, and he comes in and he's like, to my brother, the richest man in town. And, they sing Shall Old Acquaintance. And then like my favorite part in the whole movie, there's so many favorite parts, but like the very end, the bell rings, and, she says, look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. And he says, that's right, attaboy, Clarence. Oh, that's actually the end of it. Before that, when he looks down, before the bell rings, and he sees in the money, the book, Tom Sawyer, that Clarence is reading, and had no earthly business being there. And he picks it up, and he opens it up, and he says, dude, I'm getting choked up. They're gonna think I'm a wimp, man. Your viewing audience. And he goes, it says, "Dear George, no man is a failure that has friends." And he says, "Thanks for the wings. Merry Christmas." And she's like, Mary's like, "What's that, honey?" And he says, that's a very special gift, Christmas gift from a very dear friend of mine. And that's when the bell rings. Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. He's like, "That's right, attaboy, Clarence." And for a second, he winks, and it's like, he's so cool. And also, it's one of the first movies in the 40s that have incredible dialogue that, not that the others didn't, and Casablanca didn't, it did. I'm just talking about in terms of the snappy one-liners and, he's, "You look about like the kind of an angel I would get," and it's just, he has a bunch of funny one-liners. I can go into a million of them, or at least tens of them. But also, and this is my contention, I don't want to get dirty on the show, but it's not dirty, it's just a fact. When one of the most romantic scenes in all of movies, along with the coffee Jackie Brown has with Robert Forster, Pam Grier does, and Jackie Brown, one of my most romantic scenes ever is when George Bailey and Mary, Donna Reed's Mary, are on the phone, and Sam Wainwright. Do you remember that scene? And he's like, "Mary, get the other line." She's like, "I can share. My mother's on the other line." And the mother goes, "I am not." She hangs up the phone, right? Boom. But then, she was on the other line, so she's like, "We can share." And they're close to each other, and Mary's crying because they just had a fight, and they want to make out. And then they go at it at the end. He grabs her, he throws the phone down, and he says, "Now listen to me. I don't want any ground floors, and I don't want any plastics, and I don't want to get married ever to anyone. Do you hear me?" And he's shaking her, and she's crying hysterical. And then he's like, "Mary." He's mad at her because he can't resist her. And he's like, "Mary, Mary," and he starts kissing her. "Oh, Mary," and he's passionately kissing her. And then the mother looks down and screams, and then they cut. The very next scene is the wedding. And I got to make note of something, and you can go back and watch it this week. Mary is not in white at the wedding. I don't know how else to say this to you. Mary is not in white, and in 1940
they fornicated.
I promise you, there is no reason she would not have been in white. He made love to her that night, maybe right there on the floor. It's kind of cool when you think about it. It's not some corny movie. Because the mother looks down and screams, and then the next scene is, "Here they come!" Dun, 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 dun. And she's in, like, I don't know, she's in red. I don't know. She's not in white. She is not in a white dress by far. And that is a very racy hint. And my mother, God rest her soul, Joan Borowski, used to get so mad at me and laugh. And she'd be like, "They did not." I'm like, "Mom, they had sex. I know you don't want to believe it, but they had sex." And she's like, "They did not have sex." I'm like, I don't know, man. She's not in white. There's no earthly reason for her not to be in white. And when you think about that, it's very racy.
Time, yeah.
It also is one of the greatest beginnings to a movie ever. All the prayers coming through, and the 3 stars, talking, and call Clarence. He's like, "Oh, but that little clockmaker, he's foolish, yes, but he has the heart of a child. Call him Joseph." And then, Clarence is like, he's like, "An hour? Oh no!" He's like, "Oh, I've only had an hour to dress then." And then the guy St. Joseph gets mad at him. He's like, "You will spend that hour getting to know George Bailey." And then the way he's like, "Do you see him?" And he's like, "I can't see anything." "Oh, I forgot. You haven't got your wings. When you're in your wings, you'll be able to see all by yourself." And then we see the story of George Bailey, And he's like, "Look at that face. I like him. I like George." That might have been when he was older, but I like him. I like George Bailey. And all the things he did for people. Another part that chokes me up is when he goes to his brother's grave, and they're playing this almost horror music, this creepy, and he goes and he says, Clarence goes, "Harry Bailey crashed through the ice in 19 whenever," and he's like, "That's a lie. Harry Bailey went to war. He saved the lives of all that men on the transport." And then he's like really pissed, and Clarence goes, "All the men on that transport died. Harry wasn't there to save them because you weren't there to save Harry." You see, George, one man's life really impacts so many others, and if you take him from the equation, that's the extent of it. It doesn't say the equation, but it says one man's life touches so many others. When he's not around, it affects everything. Then he says, "Clarence, That's my favorite when he's screaming. Harry barely went to war. He's so he's so proud of his brother and he's angry. That's another one of my favorite parts. And then he says afterwards, and this is just it's humorous to me. He's like, "What happened to Mary? Clarence, what happened to him?" He's like, I can't, even though he's number one, he's just told him everything that's happened in his life. He's saying, I can't tell you what happened to Mary, or I don't know. He's like, tell me, that's a lie, tell me what happened to her. And he's like, you're not going to like it, George? And then he says, like it's the worst thing in the world, she's an old maid, like it's magic. She's an old maid.
She let herself go, like, George.
And he goes, she's just about to close up the library. Like it's the worst thing in the world. And she does say earlier in the movie, he says, you could have married Sam Wainwright or anyone else in town. And she says, I don't want to marry Sam Wainwright. I want my baby to look like you. And that's when she tells him she's pregnant. But she was beautiful and could have married anyone. But if there was no George, she wouldn't have been in love. But what was really haunting for me is, it's funny to me when he's like, she's just about to close up the library. It's like almost humorous. When he goes and he sees her closing up and she looks the same. She didn't really let herself go. She was hot. But she had glasses, and she had like a hat. But it's like her personality. She was like a recluse. And when he sees her, she's not attracted to him because she doesn't know who he is. And he's like, Mary. And she's like, I don't know you. He's like, Mary, you're my wife. She's like, ah! And she runs into like what essentially is a strip bar filled with hookers because it's now Pottersville. And he's like, that's my wife. And she faints. And Violet Bix is now like a hooker. Remember the blonde, Violet Bix? She's a hooker because George wasn't there to help her. It really is. And even the shot when I was a kid of Bert, when he's like, there's the guy that got away, and he sees George Bailey, and he's shooting at him with a real gun, like, psh, psh. When you're a little kid, it's like really hard. It's harsh. It's like he's really shooting at George Bailey, and to me, it would always hit me, like as scary, like his friends shooting at him. And I would equate it with another great Christmas special, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, when the Burgermeister goes, children of Samba Town, you will never play again. And they have the very fake fire. And what they use for fire are those like cellophane things blowing. And the kids are crying. And when I was a kid, I wanted to cry. I was like, these kids are never going to play again. I would like, and I have a tradition, and I don't know if I'm going Monday night. I have to hear from Mary Domino. She'll get mad if I call her nickname. She's Catholic and she's a comedian. But I call her, she's not X-rated at all. She'd get upset. But she says funny things that are sort of naughty. And she's like, I'm not really X-rated, but I call her the X-rated Catholic comedian. She's almost like Sarah Silverman if she was Catholic. But she's not X-rated. She's not. And she'd get upset because she's like, people are going to think I'm really X-rated. But she will tell some semi-dirty jokes. But she's very funny. She's one of the funniest people, no exaggeration, I've ever met. I'm going to do a short with her. She's in nightclubs. She plays Justin, played by Zachary Abel of ABC Families, Make It or Break It. Justin's the lead, and he's the one who befriends Ernie Borgnine, him and Annie Her and Brian Williams, and she plays Justin's mother, and she's Italian-American, and she's very – honestly, she's one of the funniest people I know, but she's also one of the most beautiful people I know. And you could not talk to Mary for 3 months, and if you call her, like – the bridge watch is on. You're almost suicidal. You're so upset over something. You call her, she'll talk you down. That's who she is. She's awesome. And she's a dear, dear friend. You see the poster for Nightclub. No, you guys can't see anything. I'm sorry. You can see it, Josh.
That's special.
I just gave
It's there, I believe. He's speaking the truth.
Movie magic. I'm not supposed to do that. They're going to go, what the hell is he talking about? But we don't need to inform them. They don't need to know. But anyway, so I look at some of these things, and It's a Wonderful Life along with those Rankin Bass. But It's a Wonderful Life is also my favorite movie tied with Get Shorty. And even though it's a Christmas show, I'm just going to throw out there because I hope that you'll have me back for other shows. I did feel like I put a gun to your head. And when the Creature show comes out about the Creature remake and all that stuff, hopefully you won't be like, I've had enough of you, Sam.
It's all good.
But I'm going to give you my top 10 movies of all time. I warn you, you've heard them. I don't know if you remember them all. They are completely different and really radical, and they're more than 10. They're like 12 instead of 10. That's how insane I am with movies. Tied for the first spot. Also, I don't go like if I tie for the first spot, the next one isn't 3. It's still 2. I'm really irresponsible that way. I just love movies. So tied for the first spot is It's a Wonderful Life and Get Shorty. Number 2 is a film that was produced by a very dear friend of mine, Oscar-winning producer Albert S. Ruddy, The Godfather. So we have It's a Wonderful Life and Get Shorty. Then we have The Godfather. Al also produced $1 Million Baby. But we have It's a Wonderful Life and Get Shorty 1, The Godfather 2, Pulp Fiction 3. Really had an impact on me as a, in my younger years, in my not my teens, I was in my 20s. It's hard to believe that was like 20 years.
That was a game-changing film. I mean,
yeah, I mean, totally,
like that and Clerks, that kind of like made the indie movie business like legit, to the mainstream. What didn't you say?
And when you're like 20 years old or 19 and you see a movie like that, it has a real impact on you. So I definitely would say totally game plan, and it influenced those movies like Clerks and even movies like Go. And so I look at that. That's 4. Number 5, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Number 6, a movie that was inspired by Creature from the Black Lagoon, Jaws. Jaws to this day has it's not just because it was Spielberg, and to me it has like a larger than life, almost legendary status. I mean, when I look at the blueness of that water and think of the sharks in there and the opening scenes in the dark and she's swimming, and my dad even let me read the book. I was a reader when I was younger. My dad he let me read. He yelled at a teacher in 2nd grade because she saw me with a book about World War II, and it was a book about World War II, and it had photos in it, and like really brutal photos, and the cover was like an American soldier who had burns and scars, and it was a real true story. It was someone who wrote all about the war and the heroes and the tragic villains, and it was a guy who had burns, and they had the cover look like it was singed, and she called him in. She's like, she took it from me, and my dad was like, I yelled at her. I got in trouble, and my dad got called in, and she said, he shouldn't be reading this book. He said, let me tell you something. I got a son in 2nd grade that's reading a book about World War II. Maybe shame on you. Give me his book, and you worry about policing your own kids. And he would let me do things. He would let me see horror movies when I was little. But that had an impact on me as a person for the better. And I remember I was like really too young to see Jaws, and me and my nephew Jeffrey watched it. He let us watch it, and my nephew Jeffrey, he was like a clown, and we'd be screaming, and he'd be like, if you kids don't knock it off, I'm gonna like rop you in the skull, and you're not gonna watch it. Okay, we'll watch it. And he used to tell me, if you get nightmares, keep it to yourself. Your mother finds out, that's the end of you seeing these movies. I don't want to hear about it. Keep it to yourself. But I loved it, and something about Jaws. I remember reading the book, and they described how the shark, that there could be something underneath there, something real, and sharks are real. And when the shark bit her leg, she had this numb feeling like, what is that? Wow, that's pain. And, oh, now it's numbing. And, oh, what is this redness? And the way they described it was so eerie and haunting. Her leg wasn't there anymore. And he portrayed that from Peter Benchley's book in the movie. Like when she swims and she's trying to hug that thing and she can't stay, she doesn't have her leg. It really affected me as a child, but not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. And I will tell you this, if I'm at the Jersey Shore, if I'm somewhere in the ocean, I'm not afraid to go in the ocean. I go in the ocean, but I don't go beyond my waist, like above my belly button. And I'll tell you this, I won't go if there's only nobody out there. I'm not going to stand there and be a smorgasbord. I'm kind of a big guy, so. But if there's like 4 people out there, I stand behind them somewhere because I figure the shark would get them first.
I think the lesson of Jaws is respect nature.
It is, and like, because so many of them tempt danger, and they like ask for it, and even though they hear there's been a shark attack, they cover it up. I don't think the mother knew, and she comes and smacks Sheriff Brody, but it really wasn't his fault because he said you got to close this beach, but the mayor didn't respect danger, and I always remember that scene. Amity means friendship, and he's like such a jerk to the mayor, And Richard Dreyfuss with the famous line, with all due respect, he wouldn't know a shark if it swam up and bit him on the ass, and like, so Jaws is 5. So, see, I can't even give you my list without rambling on. 6 is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. 7, again, now this is going to bring my list to like 12, not 10, not 11. I love James Bond movies, so it's a tie with Goldfinger and Live and Let Die. That's 7. 8 is Saturday Night Fever. 9 is The Bride of Frankenstein, and never has there been a better take on marriage, huh? And 10 is Jackie Brown. So to recap that list, it's a Wonderful Life and Get Shorty 1, Godfather 2, Pulp Fiction 3, Creature from the Black Lagoon 4, Jaws 5, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly 6, Goldfinger and Live and Let Die tied for 7. 8 is Saturday Night Fever. 9, Bride of Frankenstein. 10, Jackie Brown. And then, in my notables, my honorable mentions, there's like Goodfellas, Night Shift by Ron Howard. It's so hard to just pick 10, but when you hear that list, you know that I'm a very eclectic guy. I don't just like horror. I don't just like thriller. I don't just like action or superhero. I don't just like drama. I don't just like comedy. I like it all, and It's a Wonderful Life for me has everything in my all-time movies, and so of course it stands to reason it'll be my favorite Christmas movie. And it's been a dream of mine, Josh, to actually remake the film. It's been a dream of mine to remake the film
for modern times, because times really haven't.
I don't like remakes. They're so hard to do because you have to capture the spirit of the original.
But that's one of those things. It's like, the concept is just as good today. People still have life.
Oh, it totally is.
And
you have to find a way to capture the spirit and make it very similar while making it unique enough for people to see it. But with doing that, here's a very hard thing. How do you cast that movie? And that's something we could deal with for a whole hour. I remember having a whole discussion during a Met game at the old Shea Stadium, and, they weren't very good that year, so I guess we were talking about It's a Wonderful Life. And we were talking about, who would you cast? First of all, who would you cast? George Baliofsky, my old arch nemesis, as Sam Wainwright, but Sam actually loves him. Like, who would you cast in the George Bailey role,
I think you'd have to go.
It's very hard. It's a very hard role.
I think you'd have to go completely. You can't do James Stewart. Have somebody do James Stewart. They have to go a new way with it. You know what I mean?
But you don't think there's a James Stewart-esque actor
there could
out
be,
there?
But it would always be James Stewart light, no matter how awesome they were. You know what I mean?
Well, he is so unique. You got to think, what modern actors are like James Stewart?
Yeah.
There's so many, not so many rather. He's such a, and one guy who's consistently come up is Tom Hanks. Is he the new Jimmy Stewart? What do you think about Tom Hanks in that
would be
role?
Good. But I don't think he'd try to channel Jimmy Stewart, though, just because it's that. He'd at least, how they did.
Yeah, no, I mean, he wouldn't necessarily, he wouldn't necessarily do it talking like Jimmy Stewart. But, and I think audio is a lot better when I do this. You see what I just did? Without giving away movie secrets, you see what I just did? I heard that the audio is better when you do that. That's what I've heard. Anyway, people are like, what the hell are they talking about? Well, the secrets of podcasting and radio and movies will remain with me and Josh.
Magic. He killed a chick. He killed
and
the
Masons.
He killed a chicken.
But anyway, basically.
Black voodoo chicken sacrifice. That's what happened.
But the funny thing is, I don't think he talked like Jimmy Stewart, but I'm saying in terms of he's the closest thing we have to a Jimmy Stewart. He's not exactly the same, but I definitely think that he without doing the Jimmy Stewart accent, he already he has kind of a Jimmy Stewart like thing.
Yeah, everybody likes Tom Hanks.
Tom
He's one of
Hanks
the few
does.
actors.
And so
you know what I mean?
he's interesting. He's an interest.
But you know what I mean? Like James Stewart, everybody liked him, right? Jimmy Stewart. Tom Hanks is one of the few actors.
He's definitely
like a lot of people don't like. They'll say, "Oh, I don't like Tom Cruise," you know, even though he's really successful, or they'll be like, "I don't like." But everybody likes Tom Hanks pretty much. I don't never met anybody that's like, you know, screw Tom Hanks. He's very likable. He comes across.
Well, I mean, I would say Tom Hanks is he's probably the rare actor. He's able to embody prized qualities of his own generation that include ace comic timing, love of extreme roles, but he also has the timelessness of his predecessors. He's a classic actor. But I'm going to throw another guy out there who's not exactly, but maybe has those qualities. Dennis Quaid. What do you think about Dennis Quaid?
I can see it. I could see that.
And here's a real underdog because he doesn't remind me so much of Jimmy Stewart as he's just a chameleon. Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp. He'd
be an interesting choice. But here's an even harder one. Who would play Mary Hatch? By the way, I had a crush on Donna Reed when I was younger. She's a beautiful woman. And she got typecast as the good girl in her career. She talked about that a lot. And she had her own show, the Donna Reed Show, which I actually have some episodes on DVD. But who would you cast? Who is that all-American girl you would cast as? Now, you could say Jennifer Lawrence, and she's like my favorite actress out there, one of two or three, including unknowns, actresses out there today. She can do anything. She's brilliant. But I don't know if I see her as the happy homemaker Mary Hatch. But she's so great she could do anything. But excluding Jennifer Lawrence because she's so great.
Young, too, if you're casting like a Tom Hanks.
She is young. But then again, we always say that, and she plays 10 years above her age. But if you throw her out of the mix, who could play Mary Hatch? Like, who could you even come up
Tom
with?
Hanks' age, let's say, and we'll say even Mary Hatch would be younger than him. Why not, like, Julia Roberts?
You know, I'm a big fan of Julia Roberts. I don't know if she could play that Mary Hatch kind of. Not that she's not sweet. That's not a role that I would. It's an interesting choice. Like, who is a latter day Donna Reed? Here's someone I met the other day. She's not my first choice for the role. But what about Maggie Gyllenhaal?
That'd be interesting.
She's got a child now. She seems like a sweet person. Maggie Gyllenhaal might be, an interesting choice. I actually have a student named Denise Reed. She's going to laugh. She hears her name. And she's not even my favorite unknown actress because I've worked with some people in the past. But Denise is very good. She's one of my current students. I always tease her, are you related to Donna Reed? And if you look at her on Facebook in my class, there is a strong resemblance. And Denise is a sweet girl, loves her career, loves her boyfriend. She's just a great person. But Denise, she has that sweet quality. She takes care of her grandmother in the daytime. And I've had some great students in the past. The best student I ever had is not in my class at the current time. I hope she will rejoin it sometime. But I love great actors and working with great actors. But Denise is she's a very good actress, and I actually believe she's a distant relative. If you look at their two pictures, there is a strong resemblance. But she could probably play older and play that role. I just gave her the thrill of a life. See, you're one of my students. You'll get play. And those wonderful people we heard in the beginning and the end are Daniel Michael Crane and Ashley Brooks singing Jingle Bell Rock. They're two of my students as well. That was from the Virgil Christmas card, and some incarnation you played before the show and after it. Even a cappella, they're great. But they may actually, by the magic of time lapse have music on them when we do it, but they're wonderful. But my students are great. She's interesting. But if we go from like studio casting this thing, and they don't want to cast Denise Reed, Maggie Gyllenhaal is an interesting. She's just someone who came to mind, and it's so hard. You know, Jennifer Lawrence. She is young, but I think she can do anything.
I'll throw a name at you. Anne Hathaway.
Wow, how did I miss her?
She always comes.
Wow, that is the modern day Donna Reed. Dude, that is like great. That is tremendous. Anne Hathaway is a great name, and that's who I would cast. So if you got Tom Hanks and Dennis Quaid up there, and Johnny Depp, one of those three for George, Anne Hathaway is my Donna Reed. But the understudy could be Denise Reed. Give my students some play. But Anne Hathaway, that is a great choice. That is, dude, I don't know how I didn't think of it. But it's a hard movie to cast. Now we move forward, right? Who plays Clarence the Angel?
Clarence the Angel. How about this guy's a chameleon, so we'll see what you think. I'm a big fan of his work. Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman can do anything. He's not the guy I would necessarily think of, but then again, he is a chameleon. He changes his hair. He looks bald. He loses weight. He gains weight. He gets cut. Yeah, he's interesting. What about Christopher Lloyd?
That'd be interesting.
I'm sure there's somebody we're not thinking about. Somebody.
Here's one. Malcolm McDowell.
Malcolm McDowell would do great. He could play
and he just
that.
has that voice. It's just like hypnotizing.
He has the voice. He wouldn't normally play a crazy old kook, but he's such a great actor. He has the voice. You know what? I'd go with Malcolm McDowell in that role. That is a great choice. How about Crazy Uncle Billy? Who plays Crazy Uncle Billy?
Crazy Uncle Billy. Zach Galifianakis?
Oh, dude. Zach Galifianakis would be interesting. He was in Birdman, which I saw today. Zach Galifianakis would be funny. Is there an older Uncle Billy? Then he's a good choice. Who else? Give me 1A.
I wish John Candy was alive because he would have owned it.
Is there another actor in that vein? John Candy is sadly passed, as is Chris Farley. Is there another actor in that vein that we're kind of a big, heavy, funny guy? John Goodman.
Yeah, John Goodman. Oh, man.
John Goodman would rock in that role. I'd even put him ahead of Zach Galifianakis because of his age. Plus, every movie John Goodman does gets nominated for Best Picture in the Oscars. That's almost a true story these days. So go back, look at the movies he did. You know, look at The Artist, look at Flight, look at Argo, which I really loved.
He was awesome. The Big Lebowski.
Oh yeah. He says, what is that line? He says to Donnie, "You're something, Donnie. You're something. It's irrelevant, Donnie." Like he was great in The Big Lebowski. Doesn't he shoot somebody in The Big Lebowski?
He's like a kind of like a Vietnamese or Vietnam War vet type.
He shoots him in the parking lot of the bowling alley, right? I've seen that movie so many times. The fact that I'm even questioning it, they're going to be like, "What kind of a movie guy is this? Who is this jerk?" But it's been a long day, and I started my Christmas vacation yesterday, and it's not Christmas yet. Even when they're hearing this, I'm hoping. We think by the magic it will be up by the 22nd. We think, but at least the 23rd.
It usually goes
right?
up on YouTube first, and then usually it takes a little bit to process it and put it on iTunes a couple days later. But
it'll probably be up for Christmas Eve, though, right?
On at least YouTube.
So when people are listening to this, it's almost Christmas. But Yeah, no, it's. I started my Christmas Vacation a lot to think about, but I would go with Goodman over Galifianakis as Crazy Uncle Billy. All right, who's the villain? Who's Mr. Potter?
Good villain. Think about that.
George, this is Potter. Happy New Year to you in jail. Like who?
One thing I want to tell you about Potter, he mentioned that he never really saw the error of his ways. But a great villain, like if you think of the best villains, they always think that they're not a villain.
Yeah.
So I mean, to him, he wouldn't think he'd need to change.
Yes.
That's
How about if you put, you ready? You ready for an unconventional but great choice? What if you put Christoph Waltz under a ton of makeup in the wheelchair?
That'd be good. I'm a big fan of Christoph Waltz.
I am too. Totally deserving 2-time Oscar winner. Just represents everything I love about the business. And in Django, he was the best thing about that movie. Leo was great. It was a great movie, but he added so much to it. And in Inglourious Bastards, a great villain he played. I even liked him in The Green Hornet, Josh. People are going to get mad and snicker that I said that about The Green Hornet, but I didn't hate that film, and he was like great in it. And I still love the meeting with the cameo by James Franco, and he's like, you know, people have to think too much with your name. My name is Danny Clear. I sell crystal meth. They call me Crystal Clear. I love that, you know. And then they kill him. They leave the bomb there. He's like, right, you're gonna leave me to tell your legacy, right? I'll spread your legacy. And they're outside. You hear, you know, like the explosion. But he would be an interesting choice. What other older actors could play Potter? John Lithgow? Is he too tall to play Potter?
Probably.
Who's an older actor?
Like 60 plus range.
Yeah, like closer to 70.
How about Ian McKellen?
Yeah, even though he's not an ornery SOB in real life, he could play
he has
one
that
in a movie.
gravelly voice. You know what I mean?
And he could bring an air of like a aristocracy to Potter. I'm gonna go with Sir Ian McKellen, and the backup to Christoph Waltz. Ian McKellen because of the age, him in the wheelchair. Well, George, you know, like that's pretty interesting. That's interesting casting. Who plays Sam Wainwright? Well, my old friend George Beliofsky. Who's like I got one for you. He doesn't look like the actor at all, but Vince Vaughn.
I can see that.
Because Sam Wainwright is over the top, and he becomes a millionaire, and even when he's saying, "What are you trying to steal my girl?" He's got 2 hot girls with him in the office. If you remember, Vince Vaughn
playing that kind of like a sleazy type.
Yeah, like Sam Wainwright was. He was like always a showy kind of guy, and Vince Vaughn, man, he would be great in it. He would be great in it. You know, I mean, this is the same man who had made another movie, probably in my top 50 or top 40. I don't know exactly where it stands, but it's definitely in my top 40, I would say, maybe even higher. But Made, the movie where Vince Vaughn, he's messing with the stewardess, and then he's in the limo, and he's like, "Hey, I got a limo. I'd invite you in, but I gotta." He's like, "I'm a tall drink of water. I gotta stretch out my, shite. I'm a tall drink of water." And when we first saw that movie, my buddy Big Steve saw it, and I remember him chuckling, going, "I'm a tall drink of water." Like Vince Vaughn was great. You know, he was just great, and I could see him as Sam Wainwright, and Sam Wainwright's the guy who goes when he's a little kid, "Hee haw," and he says it even when he grows up, "Hee haw," you know, like, and he kind of has a thing for Mary when she's a senior in high school, and he's just graduated college. He's George's age. They're a little older. And when Marty says, hey, Sam, hey, George, do me a favor. Just dance with my kid sister, Mary. She's had a crush on you. It'll make her whole night. And he's like, Marty, I don't want to. And you know, Sam Wainwright tries to make fun of her. He's like, I remember Mary. Yeah, Mama wants you, Marty. Mama wants you, Marty. But when he's like dancing with her, like, look at the look on Sam's face in the movie. The actor does a great job of conveying it. You look at, like I said, you look at the look on Frank Albertson played Sam Wainwright, on Frank Albertson's face, and he just does a wonderful job of conveying, like, he's pissed, you know? And that's when George and Mary first fall in love, and then George's father dies, but they sing Buffalo Gals that night, you know? And do you remember, here's a piece of trivia, who was Mary Hatch's date at the senior dance? Who was her date? Do you remember who Mary Hatch's date was?
I'm drawing a blank.
Dun, 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 dun. That's from the Little Rascals, my friend. And Alfalfa Schweitzer, who was actually like a thug in real life. No, he wasn't some sweet little kid. He got shot, too, in a bar fight or something. No, this is true. He got shot and killed. Or was he stabbed? Don't quote me if he was shot or stabbed, but he was killed in like a bar fight. Anyway, he plays her date in the movie, and he's bragging about how he beats people up, and he's like, see, nobody would have admitted something like that to me because they'd be scared of what I'd do to them. And right when he's saying that, George Bailey walks in, and she's like, George, and he realizes Mary looks hot. She's really grown up. She's a senior in high school, and he's like, would you like to dance? She's like, love to. And he's like, hey, that's my date. And then George goes, why don't you stop bothering people? And he goes, well, I'm sorry. Hey. But he doesn't, like, punch George or anything. George just takes his date. Like, so after he's bragging about they'd be scared what I'm going to do. And then, you know, his friend comes over, and he's like, what's the matter, Othello? He's like, guy got your date? And he's like, well, did you notice that there's a pool under that new gym floor? And did you further notice that, you know, George Bailey is dancing right over the crack of where that is? And do you further notice that I have the key? And so he instigates Alfalfa to, like, put the key in and open the floor. And then when they're dancing over the edge, when it opens and everyone's like, oh, they think everyone's gasping because they're dancing so well. And then they eventually tumble over. But George totally wins the day by when they get in the water and they come out, instead of like being super embarrassed, he grabs her hand and he keeps dancing, and then everyone's like laughing and cheering, and then they all start jumping in. And then the kid that caused it, Alfalfa, and the other kid, they look at each other, they shrug their shoulders, and they jump in. Like the coolest way to handle it. George was a cool cat, man. Even though he was an average guy, he wasn't a cool cat the way Chili Palmer is in Get Shorty. He handles the situation very well, very calm, you know, and it's out of character for him to flip out at the end. And, you know, Potter's so evil, he goes and he tells him he'll give up the building and loan, and he just, you know, and he said, I've just misplaced $8,000, which back then was, it'd be like misplacing $80,000 now. You know, it's you know, you know, the fact that Potter's going to let him fry for something he didn't do and ruin the business like that. I mean, it's so evil. And I know people in real life that do evil things like this. Evil things out of spite. It's really sad. It's a sad, sad thing that they can't make the connection what I'm doing is evil. This is really wrong. You know, first of all, hating anyone is wrong. I don't hate anyone. But there are people I dislike. But if I dislike someone, I'm certainly not going to... I'm just not going to do evil things. I'll leave it at that. But that's why, to me, it's real. Potter represents real people. And so we have some great choices for them. And Vince Vaughn is great at Sam Wainwright. But who would be Bert and Ernie, the cop and the cab driver, respectively? And I don't know if you know this, but Sesame Street, Bert and Ernie are based... Look at the shapes of their heads and stuff. I kid you not, they're based on the Bert and Ernie in It's Wonderful Life.
I never knew that.
Interesting, right?
I really didn't know that, but that makes sense.
Here's my best Jimmy Stewart. Well, this is an interesting situation. Oh, George Bailey, I'm going to call the police. They're way downtown. They'd be on my side anyway. I'm going to call your mother. She's down that way. She'd be on my side too. Remember when he has her dress or her bathrobe and she's naked in the bushes? And she's like, George Bailey, shame on you. I could sell tickets. Wait a minute, Mary, to get this robe? And then all of a sudden, the car comes and he throws it right to her. And he hears about his father had a heart attack, and and you hear that almost that horror, like dun dun, that sad music, and she looks up. This was her chance, she felt, to be with him. And because moments earlier he yelled at the old man on the porch, I'll do some kissing that'll put hair back on your head. And another part I love in the movie, I just want to throw out there, I'm all over the place, but I love this. I love the movie. I can't stop. Is when, he's like, Uncle Billy, he's your man. You take him. I'm going to school. This is my last chance. But George, they'll side with Potter otherwise, and then he gives up. He doesn't go to college. He takes over the building and loan so that Potter can't win the votes. And he gives his 4 years' worth of tuition to his brother that he worked for. I mean, kind of a human being does it take to do that. It's a very special human being to help another to that degree.
Sacrifice.
Total sacrifice. So who would play Bert and Ernie? Let's think about this. Who would be Bert and Ernie?
About Neil Patrick Harris.
Which one, Bert or Ernie?
Bert. Yeah.
The cop? Why do you say Neil? He's an interesting choice.
It's just like, I always like Neil Patrick Harris, but like...
I love him as an actor. I don't know if I see that role. Now, you know who was perfect? He had the mustache like him, and he really was a cop in real life, but he passed. Dennis Farina would have been great as Bert. Because Bert's an older guy, if you look. I'd be willing to audition Neil Patrick Harris because he's such a great actor and can do anything, but I wouldn't normally think of him in that role. Who's a tough SOB older guy actor? Who'd be great? I don't know if he'd do it because he's such a superstar, but De Niro. I'd be interested in seeing him play Bert the cop.
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis would be funny if
I don't think he'd do it. I really don't.
Put a mustache on him. Well, George, what are you yelling at me for? What the Sam Hill you yelling, George? Bruce Willis is a cool choice. Come up with one more. Because I don't think Bruce would do it. But we would offer
do it, but if he did.
Who else? What older actor, but is still a tough SOB? All right, you can go another way with it. I'll tell you an actor that's perfect, even looks like him. Not in terms of the same skin color, but his features, his eyes, mustache.
Samuel Jackson?
Keith David, my good
Keith
friend.
David, the man with the greatest voice ever.
Yes. They used to say NFL Films guy John Facenda had the voice of God, but Keith David might beat him in that department. Eric Rosenberg, my good dear friend, who's a good friend of Keith's as well, is laughing right now. But Keith David, I would cast him as Bert the cop. So then who would be Ernie? Who would be Ernie? I don't think Rowdy. And then we could add in an action scene, right?
For
where
like 20 minutes.
The cop in the alternate universe when it's Pottersville and everyone's crazy, they have a big fight scene in an alleyway. That would be another way to go with it. But if we don't want to go that way, you could do something really crazy like Chris Rock as Ernie. If Bert is African American and he's good friends with Ernie, and we want to make Ernie could be white or African American, it doesn't matter. But like if we wanted to make this movie more diverse, which there's nothing wrong with, who's a great African American who would play the cab driver if Keith is Bert the cop? Keith is perfect for Bert the cop. Who could be the cab driver? And I'm just trying to make it more diverse because I do think that movies should be diverse with different ethnicities. And if we tell a little bit of a modern update of it,
it'd be weird to have all white people.
Or even if we did it as a period, it's not like during World War II there weren't African Americans. They would have been in the town, So and there are African Americans in the movie. I'm not calling it racist. but I do know like one of the roles is the woman who's the housekeeper, and she's kind of but there is another prominent woman in town who comes and gives him money. But it would be nice if we could get, some African American actors in this, and I think Keith David is just perfect for the role. Caucasian or African American, it doesn't matter. He has the mustache, he's older, he's a badass, great voice. He would be great as Bert the cop. So who could be Ernie? Who could be Ernie?
Besides Roddy Piper.
Yeah, I don't know that we're gonna have the budget for the fight scene in the alleyway. So who could be Ernie?
I just have that mental image burned in my head.
Chris Rock may be a little too over the top.
It's a little calmer.
We still keep it home. Kevin Hart is very popular, but I don't.
He's a little younger than what you're going for, right?
There's got to be someone we're
Dave
missing.
Chappelle. But no, Chappelle probably wouldn't do it either.
Not a heavy comedian type.
You want light.
Even though it's a supporting role, Ernie's not. Remember, Ernie's the married cab driver, but in the alternate universe, his wife took the kid and left him, and he lives in a shack in Pottersville, and he's a cab driver. Not that means anything, but I'm trying to think of who could fit that persona, who could who could Ernie be? Thinking, scouring movies and TV shows, and who could be that chameleon that could be him? And like one guy who's coming to mind, who was a great character actor, and who's a friend of mine, who's in Nightclub, and he was also in a feature I produced in Iowa called A Place for Heroes, with Paul Sorvino and Samantha Taffarelli and Oscar-nominated actress Sally Kellerman, Norman Lloyd, who's a legend, worked with Hitchcock, is and this is not a good time for a Freudian slip. He's a great actor. He's a character actor, and he was in Nightclub. And just give me a second. His first name's coming right up to me, and he's going to be so upset at me that you're on the radio or on the podcast, and it's like, he was in Officer Gentleman. He was in Vision Quest. He was in
Harold
Officer
Sylvester.
and Gentleman, Vision. Harold Sylvester. I kept hearing Harold in my head. Harold's a friend of mine. I just, we have these blanks, and it's a little late now. And my IMDb wasn't working. Now it is. It's doing this funky thing. I went to check. But, Harold, and I don't know why it keeps jumping from that window to, but Harold's great. And he's been in so many movies, and Harold would be perfect for the cab driver.
Yeah.
Because he has that personality, and he would be really cool. Tell you another guy who was in Nightclub who could. I'll go with Malcolm McDowell, but who could be another backup for Potter? Clint Howard. Put Clint in some makeup,
As Clarence?
No, as Mr. Potter.
Could be.
Could be, right? It's interesting that, we talk about remaking. It's a dream of mine, but it's also, you have to be careful. You make a movie that's so beloved, that's an all-time movie, you better do a great job with it. And you got to keep the same spirit and make it similar with changes that don't sully it, but also make it your own. It's very hard to do. to keep it so similar, but to not do it frame by frame, and still make it your own. And that leads me to another topic, Josh, which is that they're making a sequel called It's a Wonderful Life: The Rest of the Story. Were you aware of this?
I'd heard some rumors, but I'm not super familiar with it.
It's they don't have a director yet, but I know that it's so far it's written. The script is being written by Martha Bolt and Bob Farnsworth, and Bob Farnsworth is one of the co-executive producers with Alan Schwab, and Bob is also listed as the composer. But I know that what's her name, Zuzu, Carolyn Grimes, is going to be in the movie, and she's going to play. I guess she plays Zuzu, who's grown up and is an angel now. She passed away, and looks like an interesting premise.
To tie the ship's like the connection to tie the two together.
Yeah, basically, George Bailey's grandson. I guess he's in some trouble. It says he's forever changed when his aunt Zuzu comes back as an angel and reveals how much better the world would have been had he never been born. And I guess that's being sarcastic, meaning it wouldn't have been better. It's in the development stage since November 18th, 2013, and Hummingbird Productions is doing it, and I'd love to be a part of it, director, producer, whatever, simply because I love that movie. I'm so obsessed with it, and I'm obsessed with Get Shorty. Those are two movies I'm obsessed with, and it's interesting. But again, whether it's a sequel to it or a remake, you have to steer that boundary. I mean, you look at like Miracle on 34th Street, the original, which I love. George Seaton, wrote it from Valentine Davies' story and adapted it for the screen, and he directed it, George Seaton, and it was just like classic picture. Maureen O'Hara, John Payne, Edmund Gwenn as Santa Claus, and a young Natalie Wood as Susan Walker. And even Jack Albertson has a cameo as the post office mail sorter next to Lou. He's uncredited, but you see him there. He's young. And that's interesting. And Lou's the guy who comes up with the idea about sending them the stuff there. Guy Tomajan played him. And he sings Jingle Bells, Jingle Bells, Jingle all the way as he decides he's going to send all the letters to Santa to the courthouse.
Which kind of saves
cool.
Kris Kringle's behind.
Oh, totally does. Saves Kris Kringle's behind and saves Christmas, I guess. And there is an interesting photo of Natalie Wood on the IMDb page. Like, completely interesting. Let me find this. It keeps doing this thing and jumping back to our other screen. I don't know why it's doing that. And it just did it, like when I moved my cursor. And the people that don't know what I'm talking about, again, the magic, right? I fixed it, even if it's temporary. There's this interesting photo of her with what looks like a Raggedy Ann doll, but the Raggedy Ann doll is like bigger than her body. I'm not kidding you. It's like a person sitting on. It's taller than her, and it's wider than her.
Large. It's like a almost an adult-sized Raggedy Ann doll.
Kind of. I guess it would be a small adult because she's tiny, but it's bigger than her body. It's bigger, taller, and wider, and it's really this crazy jagged photo. Like, she's holding this doll. I don't remember this in the movie, but it has nothing to do, I guess, with what we're talking about. But I think it's interesting, and I just see it on the IMDb page. Go to it, you'll see the photo I'm talking about. It's crazy, dude. It's bigger than her, and she's got this cute smile. She's like looking at it like, maybe she's like, why are you making me?
If I ever did like a headshot, that would be mine. It's fun. Dude,
it's like, do you see? Are you looking at the photo? You're looking at the photo. How?
Tell me when you get it, because there's like 300.
It's not on hers. It's on Miracle on 34th Street, the original. There shouldn't be 300 on that one. Hers, she had 300, but. A lot. Yeah, go to Miracle on 34th Street, and it might come up on the front page.
Let's see. There it is. Yeah, it looks just like almost like a behind the scenes shot. Is that like a prop?
How big?
I would assume.
Dude, that thing is huge. You see how big it is? And the look on her face is just priceless. People have to go and see for themselves, but it's an hysterical photo. I'm looking at it's
It
just
looks like
hysterical.
it could be from an episode of The Twilight Zone.
It does. That's a good point. So they're getting more than they bargained for with this podcast. But here's the thing. You look at Miracle on 34th Street, which is one of my favorite Christmas movies, and probably top 30 movie of all time, but one of my favorite Christmas movies for sure after It's a Wonderful Life. And did the sequel have the same? We're talking about sequels in Holly. We go from Hollywood to Hollywill be with the sequel to It's a Wonderful Life, the rest of the story. But we're talking about remakes and sequels. Hollywood, WOULD. You got to copyright that. Like we're talking about that, and did the remake, not the sequel, the remake of Miracle on 34th Street have that same? Would instead of Edmund Gwenn, it was he just passed too. Richard Attenborough.
Yeah,
And as remakes go, it was pretty good. And it was the girl from Mrs. Doubtfire, too.
John Hughes had a
Susan
big
Walker.
hand in that, and Hughes was amazing.
Yeah, Les Mayfield really directed it, but what Hughes helped, he had a hand in
He
making it,
produced
you're
it and
saying?
wrote the screenplay.
Oh, so he was a producer on
He
it,
wrote
and wrote it. Yeah, that's right. You got to look at. They have the original writers when you first look at it. So he produced it and wrote it for Les
It looks
Mayfield.
like Seaton still got a credit for it, but Hughes is the other credited screenwriter.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to find a better
they-
screenwriter than John Hughes.
No, John Hughes is great screenwriter, great director, and he did produce it. And they got what's her name to play Susan Walker, and obviously Natalie Wood had passed away and
Mara
would have been
Wilson.
too old. Yeah, Mara or Mara is it?
I always thought Mara.
Mara Wilson. Mara Wilson. She was the little girl in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
His little daughter.
And then Matilda also.
And Matilda, exactly. Quite honestly, it was good. As remakes go, it was good. But did it have that spirit of the original?
It was closer than a lot of remakes.
Yeah, it's not. As remakes go, it's good. And I'm not saying it didn't deserve to get made, but it's so hard to recapture that spirit. And I'm not saying it didn't, and I'm not saying it did. It's debatable. And it's up for debate, but it was a very good remake. And my buddy Big Steve Hart, he was there with Tim Guidera. They were extras, they're writers, and I don't know how they became to be extras in that movie, but they were extras, and I think they stood out in the freezing cold in Manhattan for quite a while. He talks about that. And I want to say that, don't quote me, I want to say that he said Elizabeth Perkins was really nice. Said some people were really nice. I think it was a good experience for him. So, and Steve was an associate producer, by the way, on The Mandala Maker. In addition to being a writer, and we have some script ideas too. But you have to always, kind of like tone that line of getting the spirit of the original. And I'll give you like a scene that made me cry when I was a little kid was when they were all waiting for Santa, right? And the foreign child, what was he from Holland?
He was Dutch.
He was Dutch, and he wanted to see Santa. And the woman, I guess she adopted him, and she brought him up and she was like very sad. She's like, I know that he doesn't speak Dutch, but when he saw Santa, he insisted on coming, and the little boy looks so sad, and then he gets on his lap, and Santa starts speaking, and Gwen starts speaking Dutch. And then they sing, and they're like, Dasha Santa Claus, and the kid has like tears of joy, and it used to make me cry when I was a little kid. I was so sad and then so happy, a range of emotions that the kid, and Natalie Wood was so like perfect, delivered a great performance, and she was like, I remember she was so like straight laced when she delivered the performance. You know, but mother, he talked Dutch to the little boy. He's so kind. He must be Santa. And it was like so matter of fact the way she did it. It was so amazing too, you know, like just so matter of fact because she's like she's I wouldn't even call her character an old soul. More of her character is just like this girl who's had to grow up way too early, you know, and the movie won 3 Oscars. You know, it won Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Edmund Gwenn playing Santa, and it won Best Writing for Screenplay for George Seaton, and it also won Best Writing Original Story. Valentine Davies. They used to give out different. Now it's just best. I think it's Best Original Screenplay and Best Screenplay based on a previous material. But if you win based on a previous material, the author of the book wins one too, or it's not just the writer of the screenplay. It's whereas they used to break it up. Now it was Best Writing Screenplay and Best from Original Story. But now the original story is like based on a previous material, and it goes to the person who wrote the story or the book, and it goes to the person who wrote the screenplay. So there was that, but also you know, they have Best Original in addition to the Best Adapted or based on a previous material. But they broke it up, and whoever wrote the story got their own, and then just screenplay, whether it was original or not, I guess. But Seaton won for Best Writing Screenplay. Valentine Davies wrote, because she wrote the story that it was originally based on. Was it a short story? Best Writing. Edmund Gwenn won Best Actor in a Supporting Role, and it was nominated also for Best Picture, even though it didn't win. It's kind of hard to top. That's like a legendary movie. And, you know, so while the remake was good, it didn't have, I'm not saying it wasn't deserving. I'm saying it didn't have maybe the original spirit of the original. It had some of it, and it was a very good remake as remakes go. I'm not knocking it. I'm saying it's hard for anything, and that's, if you do an It's a Wonderful, like I want to take on an It's a Wonderful Life remake, I take it on an It's a Wonderful Life remake. Or if I was ever involved in the sequel, It's a Wonderful Life, the rest of the story. You have to balance a fine line in capturing that spirit of the original, all while still adding something new to it. You know, the Vince Vaughn, what was that? Vince Vaughn Psycho.
Yeah, that was like a shot-by-shot remake.
I mean, you're remaking one of the most famous movies of all time and one of the most famous Hitchcock movies, which is saying something. Shot for shot, not adding anything new. While still not, what was odd is they didn't seem to have the spirit of the original, and yet they did it shot for shot.
It was miscast also.
It was not. You know, I think the actors and the filmmakers might come to you to this day and say that probably was something we shouldn't have done. You know, without putting them down, because I respect all filmmakers, and you want to know why? I know what it takes. I know how hard it is to make a movie, Josh, and I respect all of them, the effort they put into it. I just think that that's something that either I don't want to say they regretted it, but that,
I would say
maybe
Vince Vaughn and Anne Heche probably wouldn't put it at the top of the resume. to say.
Exactly. I don't think it's something that if they rethought it, they probably, you know, maybe that wasn't the right project at the right time. And they do it shot for shot, and then they recreated the house, because if you ever take the Universal tour, they have both Psycho houses, the original and the one for the remake. And they have the original; it's still standing. Why not just use that?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Different camera setups. I'm not sure.
And the Bates Motel, and in fact, in my office, I still have a key from the Bates Motel that I bought at Universal. It's like a prop key, but it's fake. But it says Bates Motel, Room 7. It's a keychain, but it's a real key on there. It's pretty cool. I love it. You know, I love that stuff. I love all that stuff, and all that stuff loves me. That stuff.
I think what I heard Miracle on 34th Street is it came out in like the mid '90s, and that was like a weird time for film.
Yeah, I mean, we had mentioned Pulp Fiction rejuvenated, so that was a good time for a lot of the copycat Pulp Fictions, and but like for this kind of a family film, it wasn't really. It was strange. It was like hit or miss in the '90s. There's so many great movies, and influential movies. But I mean, I look at the new millennium, and honestly, like, I think this year is one of the best. And I don't think that I'm not one of those people who's down in the movie business, but this year has been one of my favorite years for movies. I mean, my favorite movie was Guardians of the Galaxy by James Gunn. What a wonderful job he did with that franchise, kicking it off. And then a movie like Chef, an independent film, which was my second favorite movie. I don't know that. Birdman was my third favorite, but Birdman's in my top 7. Birdman was excellent. You know what's in my top 5? You're gonna laugh. Tusk. I really
I've been wanting to see it. Kevin Smith's new horror film. Yeah,
I will tell you this: you cannot unsee it once you see it. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy that part of it. I mean, there's a lot of, what starts off as funny is really kind of horrifying, but then it's funny and then it's just sad. It's a very oddly toned movie, but I was on the edge of my seat and I enjoyed it. Great performances, and I will not kill Kevin Smith for that. And anyone who says that it's a stupid movie or whatever, let them go make a movie. I think it's a brilliant piece of work and the most visceral film Kevin Smith has ever made. And I'm a fan of Kevin Smith's, and I'm friends with Brian O'Halloran. But Tusk was I don't want to use the word wonderful because you got to see it was a very good movie. But I look at Guardians of the Galaxy and Chef and even Tusk, which is completely different. I look at Interstellar. I really enjoyed. I didn't love the ending of it without revealing it, but I loved everything up until then. And it didn't, to show you how much I enjoyed the movie, I still talk about it to this day. And the ending didn't ruin it for me. Similar to Gone Girl. Didn't hate the ending, but I didn't love it. But I loved Gone Girl up until the ending. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
It's worth seeing. I've seen so many great movies. Trying to get them all to come
I thought
alive.
The Winter Soldier was really good this year.
The Captain America movie was an excellent, espionage type superhero movie. Or what about a movie I saw last night, Unbroken? I went to a special screening at the Universal Screening Room in Manhattan. Angelina Jolie's new movie. When it comes out, I implore you go see it. Perseverance at its finest. We were talking about it actually before the show. It's just been a really wonderful year for movies. So many movies that really made an impact on the business, on me. Great indie films. My friend Sean Christensen made a movie called Curfew that won the Oscar for Best Short Film 2 years ago. He unbelievably stood up before everyone and said, yes, I will accept the Oscar for Best Short Film for Curfew. And then he turned it into a feature with him and the same lead girl, Fatima Pacek, who plays the voice of Dora the Explorer, who's been in other movies. And he gets Ron Perlman in a supporting role, and he recasts his sister in the movie. You have to see it. He's basically an uncle who's been he's never met his niece since she was a little baby. She doesn't know him. And the mother gets in trouble one day, and she's not around. She's like, I need someone to stay with her, Richie. Will you stay with her? Can I count on you? I wouldn't call you if I didn't need you. You're the last resort. And so he meets his niece, played by Fatima Pacek, but the sister in the feature is played by Emmy Rossum. And the sister in the short was very good, but Emmy Rossum kills it. And oh man, what a great movie! And it's still out in some theaters now, if you could see it. So many great movies this year,
I think Hollywood in general. It's like it seems like right after the last writer's strike, they came back on fire. Because you look at television, yes. There's so many shows that are just people are hooked on right now. Probably more so than ever.
Yeah, this is true. I do think they came back on fire, and I do think it's been a wonderful year for movies. And as I said, Guardians of the Galaxy and Chef were my 2 favorite movies of the year by far. But I did like a movie like Tusk. I did like Interstellar. I did like Gone Girl. Interstellar and Gone Girl were the only 2 movies I really liked that I didn't love the ending, but I liked them. I really loved Unbroken. I really liked it. Maybe I loved it. Man. I saw Boyhood. People are going to be like, boo, bah, humbug when I say this. And I didn't dislike Boyhood, but it wasn't... I would never put down Richard Linklater. He's a great filmmaker. He's going to be nominated for Oscars. But I do think it was a little gimmicky, personally. I mean, I know it was shot over 10 years. I mean, look, my documentary took 10 years to complete. Creature Feature, 60 Years of the Gill Man, and I talk about that. But it's a documentary. It's a feature film, but it's not a narrative. You don't need 10 years to complete a narrative just to show how the boy ages. That's me, that's me anyway. But I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it. That was my take on it anyway. I was surprisingly, I liked Lucy, but not as much as I thought I would. I thought I'd go crazy over Lucy, and I just kind of liked it. I liked Draft Day with Kevin Costner. I thought that was excellent. Very well made. And I liked another movie with Kevin Costner and Oscar nominee Haley Joel Steinfeld playing his daughter, 3 Days to Kill. Very interesting film. Did you see it? So many great movies this year, and so many great Oscar contenders too. And I haven't seen Selma yet. So many great movies. I saw The Hunger Games.
Mockingjay.
Mockingjay Part 1. Catching Fire was 2. Mockingjay is the third installment, Part 1. I thought it was excellent. I liked the second one better, but I like this better than the first. I'd go 2, 3, 1. They're all great movies, but the second is probably my favorite still, but this was really good. And all the criticisms about they didn't give Jennifer Lawrence, who's a great actress, enough to do. I mean, what did they expect? She's devastated. She comes back from the games. The revolution is on. And it's like they expect her to be gung-ho throughout the whole thing. It was very realistic. If I had to compare it to a movie, it would be to The Empire Strikes Back in terms of the tone, setting up the last film.
Where it gets darkest
it
before dawn.
It's always darkest before the dawn, and the ending of this is very dark and horrifying almost. It's worth seeing. It was a great year for movies, and a great year in general. And 2015 is going to be a great year for me, for you, for the movie business, for everyone out there. Peace and health. And I think we've had a great podcast, but I want to ask you before we close this out, we've gotten in everything, but if you had to pick your favorite Christmas movie and your underrated Christmas movie, what would they be? I'll lead off since you already know mine. Obviously, it stands to reason. My favorite movie of all time is my favorite Christmas movie, and I've already said it, so it stands to reason. It's a Wonderful Life. But if I had to pick an underrated movie, it would be Surviving Christmas with the late, great James Gandolfini and Ben Affleck, who's awesome in the movie. And it's a very sweet movie with a little twist at the end, but it's very funny. I think it's hysterical, and I think the only reason people killed it is because at that time it was chic to kill Ben Affleck, but he's come back with a vengeance, and he's got his.
He's a good director, honestly. Gone Baby Gone, that movie's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, he's a great director and a great actor too. But I loved him in Argo, and I loved his directing and his acting in Argo. But if you go and you watch. Surviving Family, you will see it's a lot better than people give it credit for. And it had a very interesting Surviving Christmas. Surviving Family was done by my friend Mara Lesserman. She wrote and produced it, and it was directed by Laura Tees. They're wonderful people, and starring Tara Westwood, among others. But Vinny Pastore was in it. But Surviving Christmas, if you go, and you know what? I'm going to give it a very generous rating on IMDb, maybe even one more star than I would normally give it, because I don't like the 5.2 rating they're giving it. But I'm going to tell you this. It really is a wonderful movie, Surviving Christmas. It really is a wonderful movie, and I enjoyed it, and I really, really enjoyed it. Oh, Betty Thomas produced it. Mike Mitchell directed it. For a second, I thought Betty Thomas was the director. But the thing is, it's really great. It's got tons of funny one-liners. It's a humorous movie. It's got a sweet ending. And, it had an interesting release in that it was released at the very end of October. It was released right before Halloween, October 30th or October 29th. And by Thanksgiving, it was out of the theaters within 2 weeks. And this was the first movie I ever saw this with, and I don't think I saw another movie do this yet. Not yet, anyway. I don't think I did. Because they knew that it was going to get killed and panned by critics, they released it in late October, By the second week, it played maybe 2 weeks. It was out of theaters, and by Thanksgiving, it was on DVD for Christmas. They never come out within a month on DVD. This is not me making it up. It was on DVD on Thanksgiving.
It's a good way to recoup their money.
I guess because it was a Christmas movie, they thought they could capitalize, and they did. They did sell a lot of DVDs, from what I heard, that year, especially because people knew it was just in the movies. But honestly, Josh, it's a lot better than it was given credit for. You have to see it. It's a very, very, very fun movie. Love the ending of it, and I love the movie itself, and it's my underrated one. So, and I thought Ben Affleck's great in the movie. I think if it wasn't so posh to kill Ben Affleck, you know, he's great in the movie. So what would your favorite Christmas movie be and your underrated Christmas
Favorite,
movie?
I would have to go with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Another John Hughes film.
It's that time. Christmas time is here. Everybody knows there's not a better time of year.
It's just, like, Christmas Story is good, but I mean, like, if you're just looking for, like, I think Christmas Vacation is the most entertaining, I guess you could say.
It's getting a little nipply out there, a little nipply.
It's just, some of the comedy's so goofy.
Randy Quaid kidnaps his boss.
Yeah.
I love
and
that.
I love, like, the neighbors.
Ryan Doyle Murray's his boss, and he gets kidnapped by Randy Quaid. That's so, and the love of Randy Quaid for his like brother-in-law, I think, is so cool, because there was a real like warmth. Like, even though he was the white trash brother-in-law, he kind of loved Clark, and he thinks he's helping Clark.
But I even like the neighbors, the yuppie douche neighbors.
Wasn't it Julia Louis-Dreyfus?
Guest.
And
wasn't it? No, not Nicholas. Yeah, it was Nicholas.
No,
Guest, I'm pretty sure.
It wasn't her husband in real life, Brad Hall. All right, now I want to see this on IMDb. I mean, because she's married to Brad Hall. That's why I thought they were the couple in that. Christmas Vacay. Christmas Vacation. I'm going to play that song later.
Johnny Galecki's done pretty well lately. He played...
Jeremiah Cheshik directed that one.
He's wrote it.
He directed Benny and June. Great director. Let me see here. I'm just trying to figure out... You're right, it was Nicholas Guest. You're absolutely right. I thought it was Brad Hall, her husband in real life. But yeah, and that was so funny. They were the yuppie neighbors, and
they were great foils.
And yeah, that was great song. Great, you know, He gets the bonus to the Jelly of the Month Club when he goes crazy.
Yeah, he was planning on the pool.
The pool, yeah. He's like, and we'll invite everybody out for the inauguration of the pool. And there is a kind of a love between, you know, Chevy Chase's Clark, you know, and Randy Quaid's Eddie. There is kind of a love there.
It's a love-hate relationship. I think Cousin Eddie loves Clark. I think Clark hates.
Clark hates him, but I think down on the inside, Clark knows that Eddie really cares about him, and it's like, you know, Eddie's not as well off. And in the first movie, weren't they eating helper sandwiches?
Oh yeah, without the hamburger.
They couldn't afford the hamburger, so they just had the helper, and they put it on bread. They put pasta on bread. It hasn't gotten that bad yet, right, for either of us that we have to eat helper sandwiches.
Maybe next Christmas.
No, let's hope it'll be
Beef
better.
prices are high, I'm telling you. But then my underrated film, I just watched it last night again, is Bad Santa.
My buddy Steve Hart, one of his favorite movies, not just Christmas movies, him and Timmy Guider, who were extras, the two writers, who were extras in the remake of Miracle on 34th Street. I believe they went to go see that on Christmas Eve, Bad Santa. and it's kind of got a legendary status with them. So I guess it does with you as well.
I like that kind of humor. Like my favorite TV shows, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and it's sort of that same dark humor where Billy Bob Thornton's character is just such a piece of crap. That's the nicest way to put it.
But he does have a nice character arc without giving away the ending.
Yeah, he improves a little bit.
That's an interesting, underrated choice. I gotta say, this has been an interesting podcast, has it not been?
Closing out 2014, this will be our last one. Looking into 2015.
I am honored to be on the last podcast of 2014. Hopefully I'll be back with the creature one we talked about. But I am honored to be on the last podcast of 2014. And I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year in 2015 to everyone in your listening audience, your listenership. I think I'm going to close it out with my own Christmas thought, and it's very short because I know we've been about a 90-minute podcast, but I actually think it wasn't boring. I think it was fun, snappy, and I hope the audience will think so and not egg our houses like Craig T. Nelson's in All the Right Moves. Then we have to go and torture the Tom Cruise in our life and blame him for something that he tried to stop. But anyway, all the right moves. I could even sing that song. If we make the right moves, we make all the right moves. It's pretty pathetic, I know that, but as the movie geek in me. I was going to say, I was out in Manhattan last night walking about. Went to the screening of Unbroken, Angelina's Unbroken, the Universal Studios movie at the Universal Screening Room, which is a gorgeous place to watch a movie if you ever so get the chance. And so happens I have a buddy and a few people I know that work for Universal Studios, and it was a wonderful time. They had the chestnuts roasting. People were nice. They were saying Merry Christmas. People were being kind to one another. If they bumped into you, they're like, oh, sorry. They had a spring in their step. And then people are just nicer at Christmas time all over the world, but especially in New York. And I say that it's my hometown, knowing it's my hometown. And I told a dear friend of mine, Daniel McQuarrie, I hope he's made it to the end of this podcast. He may be coming out soon to work with me on movies, but Daniel, who lives in Texas, and I told him he's got to get himself out here and get his butt out here for Christmas time in New York. There's nothing like it. And all over the world, though, you could feel, for those that are believers, I happen to be a believer. I don't enforce my beliefs on anyone. But, it's about celebrating the time of Jesus' birth. And that spirituality seems to, really impregnate the air. Really, that may not be the word I'm looking for, but permeate the air. And there's a spirit of kindness and love and peace during this time. And I always go to midnight mass. After I watch It's a Wonderful Life, it's over at 11, and I head out there and I get a seat early and I listen to the Christmas carols and the Christmas songs, and then I stay for the mass. And when I drive home, I look at the Christmas lights. I imagine the way I felt when I was a little kid thinking of Santa. And when I would go to midnight mass, it's like midnight mass and New Year's Eve are the two latest. I would always stay up, and it would be like you stayed up for 3 days straight because you're a little kid. You're so tired, your eyes hurt. But I try and capture that spirit of what I felt like. And it's not just about getting gifts. It's about giving gifts is kindness and making people happy. And I'm late in getting you your gift, but I have them. I have both of the items that I discussed with you, and you will be getting them. And you gave me a wonderful gift, the early Christmas gift of the Creature bobblehead from Funko, and that's one of my collectibles. And it came to my office the day of a class, and I went upstairs and got the mail, and I showed the class, and they're like, that's cool. They wanted to play with it. I was like, you're not touching it. It's not coming out of the box. Get away from it. But they thought it was cool. But the thing is, I have it with my collection, but that one I actually still have. I was like, am I going to bring it home with my collection? But I have some collectibles in my office, and I have it there now because I like looking at it. And that's where I have Eric Rosenberg gave me a beautiful gift of a dancing baby Groot. And he actually dances, listen to this, to the Michael Jackson tune. We're breaking all sorts of rules here, but I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, don't sue us, owners of ABC.
And you can't see him, but he is dancing. It's so cute. It's so cute you want to puke, but in a good way.
Good old baby Groot.
Not that puking. But no, but it's that cute. But you know, my serious thought, I was walking around, I was with Eric, and he was just getting excited. He was buying his son Benny some gifts for Hanukkah. It's 8 crazy nights, as you know. But, you know, his wife is Catholic, I guess, Steph, Catholic, or she's some form of Christian. And, you know, I remember his mother said, you just deal with that. She didn't say stuff. She said another word. You just deal with it. And they had a dual wedding, and they're so cool, and they're beautiful people. But I got a kick out of watching him buy toys for his son, and because he was saying for Hanukkah, but Steph has so much for him. We give him each day. Maybe I'll keep this for Christmas morning, and I'll just give it to him. Even though Eric's Jewish, Steph, I don't think she converted. She was Christian. But, you know, like the fact that they celebrate everything. And I saw a picture of Benny holding up Hanukkah gifts this morning, and he was in front of a little Christmas tree in his Spider-Man PJs. And there's this spirit of love that permeates everywhere. And my message to close out your show would be, if people could just keep a little piece of that spirit all year long. I know it sounds cheesy but I mean it. And if they could stop themselves from being like a-holes and stop themselves from doing evil things and from hurting others just because they're small-minded, little bitter people. If they could, you know, stop acting like Mr. Potter and say, you don't have to like a person to be kind and considerate, you know? And look, I make mistakes. We all do. But if we can keep a piece of that love all year long, that feeling is a great feeling. And I love saying Merry Christmas to people. And and if it's politically incorrect, then I'm politically incorrect. I love saying it. And I'm going to tell you another little secret. Holidays derives from holy days. So when you're saying happy holidays, you're not really censoring it the way you think you are. Holidays comes from holy days. And it's not about me enforcing my beliefs. It's just about the spirit of love. Whatever you believe in, I know what I believe in, but whatever you believe in, love and peace and spirituality are never bad things. And if people could just be kind to one another all year long, if it could be a yearly thing instead of a
there should have been just one commandment, just don't be a dick. I think it would cover the other 10.
People can't seem to follow love thy fellow. They can't, and there's not everyone can't not be a jerk, but you know, there's people that, like you said, don't be a dick, and they can't seem to do that. And it's sad to me. It's sad to me. It's not that I'm above it. I've had my moments that I'm less than proud of. I do my best to make up for them, and I told the person I love very much once, and I say to many people, I may not always do the right thing, but I do my best to do the right thing, and I do my best to figure out what the right thing is, and sometimes I do the wrong thing, and sometimes, but I don't carry on grudges, and I don't, you know, like Ben Affleck gave that speech, you know, he didn't get, somehow he had the best picture, and he won some other awards, but he wasn't even nominated for Best Director. I won't say he was the best director that year, because I thought David O. Russell in Silver Linings Playbook was, but I had Ben Affleck as 1A. He didn't even get nominated. O. Russell didn't win after getting nominated, Ang Lee did, and Ben Affleck didn't even get nominated, and it's hard because they had a lot of great directors that year. Who do you take out? But he directed the best picture. He must have did something right to get nominated. But you know, it's also politics, and I'm not saying it in a bad way. It's voting, and it's not always about who's the best, you get the best candidates, and if there are 5 best candidates, out of the best 10, you might get 7 and 8 instead of 4 and 5. And I understand it's hard to. But when he got on that stage and he gave his speech and he said, "You can't hold grudges. It's hard sometimes, but you can't. You know, it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down in life. What matters is that you got to get up." And that really touched me. And if people could look at loving that way, look, it doesn't matter how many times you've been an asshole. What matters is that you got to be nicer. And if we could do that all year long. I mean, Christmas is special. It is about the birth of Jesus. But to me, Jesus is the reason for the season. But what Jesus represents, that love and the baby being born, you know, why can't we carry that around all year long? And I wish we could. We can. People can. People can change. You know, to quote Sylvester Stallone in Rocky IV, if I could change, you could change. You know, but that's my thought. That's my thought to close out this Christmas podcast, but I've really enjoyed doing it with you. I could talk for another hour, and I think we kept it interesting enough for the people. We're right at the point where they loved it, and they might start to hate us after this. So I think we injected a lot of humor into some serious subject matter and some interesting discussions. And man, I really enjoyed it. I enjoy your podcast, and I'm going to make it my goal for this to be the most listened one of this year. And we'll see if the people all listen to it. Can you tell how many people download it for free and listen to it?
I can ask maybe the guy that uploads it, Edward Krauser. So I'm saying hello, Krauser. Thank you for always putting this up. I could ask him. I'm not sure.
Check, but I'm sure it's going to be a very popular one. I know that was a very conceited thing to say, but I didn't mean it in that manner. I just meant that I think we really did our homework, and we both love movies. And Josh, I've really enjoyed being your guest. And before you close it out, since it's your show, I'm going to say one thing to the viewing audience. One large thing, one last time. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year in 2015 to all of you. God bless. And I would say, adios. You get to the end, you write in, fade out. You don't?
Thank you very much for being there, for joining me on this. And happy holidays. And we'll see you guys next time on the next episode. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it'll be something decent. Take care, everybody.
Jingle bell rock. Jingle bells swing and jingle bells ring, snowing and blowing in bushels of fun. Now the jingle hop has begun.
Jingle bell rock. Jingle bells chime in jingle bell time. Dancing and prancing in Jingle Bell Square in the frosty air.
What a bright time, it's the right time to rock the night away. Jingle bell time is a swell time to go gliding in the one-horse sleigh. Giddy up, jingle horse, pick up your feet, jingle around the clock. Mix and mingle and jingle bell beat, that's the Jingle Bell Rock.